One. All right, what's up? My name is Zach, and I'm with one of my good friends. His name is
Igor.
Igor. So thank you all for joining us today online, Facebook, YouTube, on our website, and so there's a lot going on in the world, especially with Ukraine right now, Russia, all this, and I didn't know who better to ask, like, to teach us about what's going on other than you. And so Igor and I met a few years ago. 2020 kind of stopped us working together, but anyway, we're here. If you're here online, just comment. And if you have any questions, we're going to go through some of this. But Igor, do you want to share about kind of background about Ukraine, Russia, all that sort of stuff?
Okay, yeah. Okay, so background is like that. Both of those countries been part of Soviet Union from, let's say, 1924 probably to 1991. And in 1991, when Soviet Union collapsed, every state became independent. And Russia, of course, took a biggest chunk of territory, and Ukraine was the second one who ended up with the biggest territory after Russia. And the population is about, right now, 140 million for Russian people and about 42 million for Ukrainian people. Used to be about 45 when the Soviet Union collapsed. And yeah, Ukraine, of course, when originally ended up with one of the biggest military after Russia when Soviet Union collapsed, and including nukes. So in that time, Ukraine was number 3 after US and Russia in the nukes count. So what they did, they decided we don't want to do anything about that. It's too expensive to keep, and they want to be like independent territory. So they made agreement between Russia, Britain, and US about they call it Budapest Memorandum, which one was supposed to be protecting Ukrainian territory. Nobody will say we don't have any. Everybody was saying we won't have any kind of problems with you guys' territory, but Ukraine was willing to give nukes away. So Russia took all those nukes basically. It took years, but it's ended up like it's no more. So yeah, and Ukraine, of course, always all those years thought Russians as a brothers, like Russia thinking a big brother. Ukraine was trying to talk about like be more like a brothers. Like I know in China it's kind of almost if I say I'm your big brother, you my younger brother, it's a little bit, kind of I'm bigger than you kind of deal. So yeah, and so yeah, it's just. They just want to be like, they thought our big brother never gonna, betray us realistically, because something it's like almost imagine it like, like a Canadian people or US people, and just we just have same border, and I think, we just basically, I don't see any reason why somebody will fight another country, like Canada or US each other, So that's what was thinking in people's minds. So, and if you ask, let's say in 1990s, 2000, about, how you feel about Russians in Ukraine, they will say we basically same people kind of see the deal, because half of Ukraine, of course, speak Russian language, about, so it's like a lot of people speak Russian language, and it's like nothing, nobody saying you can't and stuff. But of course, when years pass and, new kids been growing up, they grown up in independent countries, they just like to be more part of the European country, because they basically in a part of Europe, and they seen a lot of corruption, and they want a better life, So they try to elect presidents there and there, every 4 years, and it's always been, sometimes it's been a hit and miss, and the president was sometimes better than another, or sometimes one of them, and they all, of course, want to become rich, you know. So it's like, and of course, you know, Ukrainian scene, they even, you know, used to be, in 10, 20 years ago, Poland was worse than Ukrainian economy, you know, and stuff like that, and like for people living, of quality of living in people, you know. But they seen finally, because like Poland, which one is a neighbor country, they became like, you know, one of the very, you know, good countries to live.
Yeah.
So Ukraine was saying why we cannot do it, right? And of course, Russia all those times been trying to keep Ukraine under influence, you know, because like somebody, I forgot who told, like Russia without Ukraine cannot be empire, just a country, but with Ukraine it's almost like empire, you know.
So this goes back to Soviet Union stuff. Like some of the tensions right now goes back to Soviet Union and when that disbanded in '91.
Yeah.
Ukraine's been a sovereign nation since then.
Yes.
And so now Russia thought that it could just overtake Ukraine.
Yeah. What's happened? It's more goes back to 2014 realistically. So it was I think it was a presidential elections. I forgot exactly which year it was because I wasn't even living already there. I immigrated long, you know, before that from Ukraine. So, but it was a year when they, you know, when they elected president, and that president was supposed to kind of make more connections, connect Ukraine with Russia than Ukrainian people wanted realistically, you know. And some of those people start to come outside on the streets and say, hey, you know, we want to be part of Europe, we want to actually be a better life. So what they try to do, they try to actually, you know, beat those people to the ground with a rubber, you know, batons as a police force.
Yeah.
And brutality was that bad, so actually people revolt in the capital. So that's what they called Maidan in 2014. So Maidan was a big city, like a place in a capital, like a kind of like a square, you know, like they call it Independence Square there. So it's like a Площа Незалежності, what they call it in Ukrainian. So yeah, and then after when whole Ukraine basically was supporting it, whole scene just government collapsed and President of Yanukovych escaped to Russia. He's still there right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So Ukraine ended up without president, without military, realistically, without police force at that time because nobody knew what to do when the government collapsed. So in that time, Russia occupied basically what they say made a referendum and Crimean and Peninsula became independent and then they decide to be part of the Russia. I'm not, you know, Ukraine saying it's occupation, so Russia saying it's in the will of the people. So I will leave it like there because, you know, it's like everybody will have their own mind, you know.
Yeah.
It's like, and majority of Crimean Peninsula are Russian speakers, and they, of course, thinking, yeah, Russia is the biggest country than Ukraine, and they had more opportunities economically. So, majority of the population probably supports it, but international law never really, you know, because telling, you know, it's if you think about it, here in the U.S. we cannot really just let, say, Alaska or Hawaii became independent, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And if Alaska was part of Russia originally a long time ago, so it can, you know, they saying, hey, we'll become independent, and then we're gonna do a referendum and be a part of the Russia. How American people will feel about it?
Yeah.
I'm wondering, you know. So,
so like all this is going on, and then Russia decides in some way, like for some time, because we have missionaries there. And some people have said, even on the news, that they're not really trying to overtake Ukraine, but some of our missionary friends talk about how there have been hospitals tents and blood banks set up at the borders,
Yeah.
right? And so what that tells you is they weren't just trying to do something, they were really trying to overtake
Yep.
Ukraine.
Yeah.
And so what's happened now is there's 45 million people,
About 40 million in
about
Ukraine. now.
40 million.
Yeah, and of course, not everybody took a gun, but you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just so then of course is let's turn back a little bit back to 2014, so it's easier to understand what's going on more. After not only Crimean Peninsula was a problem, you know, for Ukraine, but also a couple more regions decide, you know, we want to be independent, you know, and they kind of overthrown, you know, like kind of became saying we're independent, we're going to have our own government. So Ukraine actually was trying to make a military operation, you know, in that region, and they bring them under own control, and it's a stalemate, you know, there somewhere in that region on Donbass, they call it, and Lugansk, Donetsk, and because Russia, of course, never let it happen, so they supported those regions, you know, from back, and it's ended up stalemate for 80 long years, you know. And now, of course, as a propaganda, I guess, works on both ends, you know. And then Russian people truly believe, you know, like, yeah, we're gonna bring independence to those people finally. We recognize them as independent like regions, and we're gonna liberate Ukraine, you know. But Ukraine don't want a liberation, you know. I mean, it's now you see like when, like 3 days later, and that bloodshed, they end up Russian-speaking, Ukrainian-speaking. They basically showing their nation. They fighting like a lions, and we need to pray for them, you know. Because we as a Christians, yeah, we're not really warriors of with a AK-47, let's say, or with a grenade launcher, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, but we are more warriors of the praying, you know, like we're supposed to pray. We're supposed to send us support, you know, pray for the maybe help whoever in Europe. They need to help with the people who displaced, you know. A lot of women, like kids, you know, now crossing the Poland border, you know, and they need some places, even in Ukraine, you know. People now actually like 10 families sometimes getting together, you know, trying to escape all that, you know, and they just coming to see with relatives in small villages and stuff like that, you know, because I mean, it's just, you know, nobody wants to be in a crossfire.
Yeah.
And you know.
And so there's a lot of people fleeing the country. Some people are.
Yeah.
Like I saw one of our missionary friends over there showed us a line going into Poland, you know. And so what are some specific things, you talked about prayer and how us as Christians, followers of Jesus, we should pray. What are some specific things that we could pray for, or like some of your family over there, friends, and to help us here know how to pray? Because the news, as we know, sometimes it's hard to tell what's true, what's not true, and all this. But we're having missionary friends speaking to us, and you speaking into us, because we want to really know like how to pray. So if there were 3 specific prayers, I know this is right on the spot,
Well,
but like 3 things that we could have hundreds of people to pray for,
okay.
what would it be?
Well, first one for peace and help of the God to Ukrainian people, you know, because they need the help. Especially army need the help, because army is a protector of the people there. And it's like David. He wasn't a king yet. He came one time to visit his brothers, and it was huge guy staying in front of him, you know. And
Big guy.
Yeah, we all know that big guy. And right now it's an even bigger guy staying in. David is a kind of smaller than real David used to be, because real David used to basically fight bears and lions, right? But yeah, so now smaller David standing in front of huge guy, you know. So we need to pray for peace and for support of Ukraine. We need to pray for. It's only one person right now can stop all that, you know. So we need to pray for that guy, you know, who is in charge of a big guy, you know.
Yeah.
So
Putin?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, it's the same like Daniel was praying for Babel King, you know.
Yeah.
Babel King,
Oh,
he
yeah.
made a huge golden statue, right? And he was actually a very bad guy. But God made a miracles, you know. God made him first an animal, then after eating so much grass, you know, he decided he want to be a human again. So he ended up, you know, preaching a God in the end of the Bible. If you're gonna read book of Daniel, and it says he was actually saying, from now on, me, you know, just preaching a king of a kings and a God. you
Yeah.
know. So I guess Daniel was able to somehow, you know, change that guy around, you know. So everybody, we just need to pray. So some people just become Christians, you know, and follow Jesus. You know, who is Jesus in your life, and you know, and make sure Jesus is a savior. And we need to pray for Ukrainian and for Russian people, because right now they all divided, and it's never gonna be for a long time like a feeling of brotherhood anymore. But they need to be, you know, Jesus can do miracles. I mean, so Jesus need to clear minds on both ends, you know, on both sides, and you know, just bring a peace in their heads, you know, especially in on the Russian side, because it's not like a big deal for you when actually you don't have to escape, you know, shells.
Yeah.
And you don't have to, when your building still intact, apartment still there, you don't have to hide with your kids in somewhere in some kind of hole, you know, and you don't lose your kid. It's exactly what's going on in Ukraine right now. You know, when it was a little, you know, when only one region was in a war for 8 years, nobody thought it's that big deal. You know, it's almost like here when let's say in US we have a war somewhere, right, with somebody. You know, I mean, we don't really feel it here, realistically.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, we can see some TV, you know, and we look, and it's like if when we have a relatives who is in army, then we kind of feel it a little bit more.
Yeah.
But really, when it's really, we don't have to deal with it, we don't feel it. But but when people start to feel, you know, it's different. So we just need to be more like, you know, like feel for it, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like I was in church yesterday, and a guy was preaching, and he told interesting thing. You know, he told, well, how often we've been thinking about that stuff? He's saying, how often we've been thinking about when some woman with a kid trying to cross a border somewhere or whatever, you know. I mean, I know it's not very popular topic here, you know, as a border. But
good.
But he's saying, we don't feel for those people. He's saying, we kind of saying, oh, they going to, you know, he was saying about himself, he was saying, oh, I'm kind of thinking that way. Oh, man, they going to go here, and, you know, and all that stuff. And he's saying, we didn't feel for them, and God giving us a lesson now. When it's our relatives now there, you know, and we have a lot of relatives there as a Russian community, Russian-speaking and Ukrainian-speaking community. We have hundreds of relatives, you know, and they all now, we're trying to contact them. It's all crazy stuff going on there. But now we feel better, you know. So God giving us a lesson with all that.
Yeah.
So we need to just tell God thank you for that lesson and pray for peace, for wisdom of rulers, I will say second, and third one, like for basically for Ukrainian and Russian people, you know, so they just need to find peace in their heads first, you know. Not really, you know, I don't want to tell them, you know, you guys need to be friends or whatever, because who I am to tell to country, you know, but you know, they just need to find themselves in a, you know, first they need to make a peace with a God.
Yeah.
And if you have a peace with the God in your head, you know, you will see things different around your life, you know.
And so Laura commented, Laura's at our church.
Okay.
She's amazing. She has a lot of compassion, Laura, you have a lot of compassion, but
Hi, Laura.
she said, seeing the families on the news who are fleeing is so heartbreaking and scary. She said, and this is kind of what you were talking about, you know. She said, the mamas I've seen are smiling and so strong for their children.
Well, yes and no, because when my sister called me, it was a evening for us, but it was about 5 o'clock in the morning for her. She was in a panic because she lives next to the airport, you know, in one of the cities, and it was actually, she woke up for some kind of shelling going on, you know, like explosions, sounds explosions, you know, and she was like, what I do? And I told her, well, because you're next to airport, because knowing how all the stuff works, you cannot be next to airport. So I told her, take a kids, take belongings, whatever necessities, like documents, valuables, and just whatever you can get, and just get out of there. So she was able to contact somebody, and they actually went to nearest village, you know, which one is a kind of has only like, not have no strategic military value for anything. So, but after, you know, she was scary. I talked with her later, you know, in the day, she was scary. She was that scary, she told that she couldn't even pick up stuff she needed, you know. She was remembering about paperwork, like documents and stuff, but she's saying, you know, I only have like that much, like little clothes on my kids now. And I end up with even basically with only one set of shoes, you know, for them. And I don't know how long I'm gonna be here, you know. At least they have a food there in the village, you know. But she's saying right now, like I spoke to her today, she's saying right now in the big cities it's very hard to even get food, you know. And it's like, and in some families now have like 15 people in their houses, you know, as refugees. And so maybe some of those courage for women with the kids is a good courage. They may be trying to make it smile, but even kids afraid because my sister told one of her kids, older one was a little bit better. He's about, he's like 12, right? But younger one, he was very worried about whole thing. And I will worry too when you hear like sounds of explosions and you have no control over it, you know?
Yeah, so like your sister she woke up at 5 in the morning and just had to grab whatever and go. And some people say that numbers don't matter, but that's your sister, but there's thousands of people that had to get up, grab whatever, and run away. You know, and I think one of the things that's important for us to know is that Scripture is very clear and says that God is close to the brokenhearted. And one of the things we see as followers of Jesus, we're continually growing in this compassion. And so there's things like my daughter Lillian, she's 7, she's amazing. But the majority of her life, some of her friends that she sees, like they're homeless or something. And that's just because of how we do ministry and all that. But you have compassion towards people. And so me and my kids, we prayed the other morning, praying for Ukraine, people in Russia, like praying for God to do this miraculous thing and even save the leadership of Russia, save, like, to change people's life. But my daughter driving to school, just that compassion she had, she was just crying, driving to school, thinking about the kids and thinking about all that. It's tough.
Numbers really matter, especially when you try to escape. Imagine you need to escape this city right now, and it's going to be a lot of numbers of the cars on the road. It's exactly what's happened there. You know, they took car, and I tell you, it's not everybody in Ukraine had a car, you know, so they took a relative's car, you know, and they told roads been like, it took hours to get out from a city, you know.
And people are probably sitting on the road running out of gas.
Well, gas was a problem, but they say actually gas stations kind of work, but it's been lines, of course. And second, it's people been in panic, Some people drive that city and people from that city drive that way, because actually it was no city to be safe that day,
Yeah.
So everybody was actually, it's like we're gonna try to run to Coeur d'Alene, and Coeur d'Alene people will try to run here, It's how what panic was there.
Yeah.
So it's not pretty. No war can be a pretty,
So Laura, she also shared, she cannot imagine, and the news has been showing both sides, but I feel the sense of loyalty and strength from the Ukraine people.
Yeah.
Raheem, one of our friends from overseas, he attends the church, and he says, when I see the Ukrainian women and children running to hide from the bombing, my heart breaks, and he prays for them.
Yeah.
And so what some people don't know, that's some of Raheem's story too.
Yeah.
Some of that stuff. It's just like, it's easy for us to forget.
Yeah.
Like, we're living here in Spokane, it's easy for us to forget that there are people literally running for their life.
Yeah.
We had a report from a missionary over there that said that their church is going back underground, because the church was underground before, and they said they hadn't forgot what it was like.
Yeah.
And so sometimes, even for us to have this conversation right here, right now, we forget like the freedom that we have in that.
Yeah, because what's really breaking my heart first, of course, seeing how capital of Ukraine, it's a beautiful city, and it's one of the most beautiful city in Europe, getting destroyed right now. Then every bridge in Ukraine basically just getting destroyed right now on both sides, because of course Ukraine trying to make as harder advance as possible for enemy troops, right?
Yeah.
And they destroying everything what they can, in the process, because so what is really heartbreaking, because every road will be destroyed, bridges destroyed, beautiful cities going destroyed, and as a church, we need to remember Ukraine was very open country for any kind of religion, denominations. It was very freedom of religion there. So you could actually go outside and, you can actually go, talk to people. Which one in some countries you can't. In some countries, let's say in some neighbor countries, you go talk to people there, you will be arrested,
Yeah,
because it's only some religions can do it,
Yeah.
only few.
And so we had reports of a few years ago in Russia that you cannot evangelize really anymore.
Well, I'm not sure, because I cannot tell for Russian people there. They need to talk for themselves, because they know it's better. I kind of been there maybe once or in my life a long time ago. So but what I heard, it's not that easy. I mean, even if you come outside with some books or try to give somebody Bible, you can maybe end up in trouble. It's not exactly like North Korea, where they probably will shoot you for that, but there it's not pretty too. So in Ukraine, you could do it, but now I think it's a devil war too, against Christ. Because when you destroy, because that country was actually a lot of, it was a country which one was open, for that, for everybody can go and just in church. It was nobody will prosecute you for going to church. Nobody will tell you anything for you if you talk to people. Police officer won't really arrest you if you actually stay and give somebody like a church books or whatever, or like some kind of magazines, like whatever. And and because of that, of course, we remember, devil still here, and he kind of goes and he just don't want it, God's words going around, right?
Yeah.
So it's a way, he's trying to, just protest it. So he's just, and if it's collapsing, I'm not sure how freedom of religion will be there then,
Yeah.
When, if, let's say, of course, Ukrainian army, it's I don't know, it's just how long they can hold all that. But if country collapses, then we don't know how freedom of religion will be there.
Yeah,
It's a big deal,
That would change drastically. So we hit the 30-minute mark. I really appreciate your time, and and I knew you were one person that I could call
Yeah.
and just
Always, you're welcome.
to be able to invest in our church and to share with us a little bit about the life in Ukraine and
Yeah, already
how to
seen
pray.
on a Russian community,
Yeah.
like here, and like I can share, what for thoughts and some how you see from our perspective. Yeah, you're welcome to contact me about
That's,
it.
and so I just want to pray. I want us to pray together, those of you online and here, even if you're watching this live or you're going to watch it later, whatever. But I just want us to take some time and pray right now. So, Igor, if you could just pray,
Yeah.
and then after you pray, I can pray.
Okay.
But yeah, let's pray together.
I will pray in Russian language, and
Yeah.
that's all. Дорогой Господь, Ты видишь то, что происходит сегодня, Господи, в мире. Господи, благослови, Господи, Господи, и слава Тебе за эту возможность, что я могу, Господи, здесь стоять, Господи, и рассказать, Господи, и Заку, и его, Господи, церкви об этом, что происходит, Господи, с моей точки зрения. Благослови, Господи, также и украинский народ, Господи, благослови российский народ, Господи, пошли им, Господи, мудрости, разумения, открой им глаза, правителям особенно открой глаза, Господи. И, Господи, останови эту братоубийственную войну, останови это все, Господи. Помилуй, Господи, и особенно церкви украинские, Господи. Сколько там церквей, в каждом городе десятки, Господи. Благослови, помилуй каждую душу, Господи. Пошли, Господи, спасение людям, которые еще, Господи, не познали Тебя, Господи. И сейчас у них есть возможность к этому, Господи, познать Тебя. Господи, пошли им, Господи, мудрости, Господи, охрану Твою. Во имя Иисуса Христа прошу Тебя об этом. Слава Тебе за все, Отец и Дух Святой. Аминь.
God, thank you for today. I pray for everything that's going on overseas, God. I pray for our Ukrainian brothers and sisters, our brothers and sisters in Russia. And God, I pray for peace for them. God, I do pray that you save leaders, that you would change their life and let them know that Jesus is the only way and that people will get saved. And God, I pray that you would be close to those who are brokenhearted. And God, that you would teach us how to help and continually pray for our brothers and sisters that are fleeing for their life. So God, help us to be an encouragement. Help us to be part of the solution of whatever is ahead. God, pray for protection. And God, I pray for peace and strength. In Jesus'